Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode. Very excited to bring you today's topic. First, a couple of updates. For those of you that follow on social media, I got to deliver my first presentation in person since the pandemic, which was super exciting. And really appreciate the folks that were giving me some love and some good lucks along the way, and it went awesome. It went really well. It was good to get back out there and just to learn that there's an appetite for in-person learning. And I know that we've got a lot of measures in place to make sure we're keeping everybody safe, but it was just a blast. A couple things I learned. It is very challenging to wear a mask for several hours while screaming so that folks can hear you in a classroom setting. So for our teachers, for our medical care providers, I commend you. Wowzer. That was definitely a lesson learned to get a more comfortable mask. I'll be ready. I'll be better equipped next time. But that was a great opportunity, and I'm really happy to share that experience with you all. And thinking about the experience last week and also thinking about the time of year with the holidays coming right around the corner, what better time than to express gratitude? So I recently started asking my podcast guests about their morning routine. And the reason I've done that is because, man, I'm a consumer of all sorts of personal development and self-help books, podcasts. I've been reading and listening and soaking up everything that I can lately. And every single podcast I listen to eventually references how important a morning routine is. So I wanted to talk a little bit about morning routine, but really hone in onto something a little bit more specifically. But I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about Jay Shetty yet. I'm on this huge Jay Shetty fix lately. And he recently broke it down so simply on a podcast that I was listening to. So if you don't know Jay Shetty, he's actually a former monk that turned global keynote speaker, life coach, and podcast host. And he's got some really great inspiring YouTubes. Definitely check him out if you get a chance, if you haven't just yet. But I'm going to read this excerpt from one of Jay Shetty's podcasts, and one of the things that he wrote is he said, "The monkey jumps from branch to branch, gets distracted, and is easily entertained. And the monkey mind is the same. It goes along in default, autopilot, numb mode. The monk mind stops to observe, be present, gain awareness, and is proactive, not reactive. It is constantly trying to find ways to improve as opposed to finding ways to instantly gratify. We all need a little bit of guidance in our lives." So I love that mindset, and I love kind of trying to get away from the monkey brain, the monkey mind, but really taking that time to be mindful in the moment, to take a step back, to be proactive and not reactive, and gaining that awareness that we get when we stop to have some sort of routine to get us back on track. So that kind of inspired today's episode. Obviously, Thanksgiving's this week too, so that certainly did as well. But Jay Shetty went on to say and talk about in his recent book, Think Like a Monk, how your morning routine is like your armor, and it prepares you for each and every day. So when you think about it, any day you're stepping into, your job, your spouse, your kids, or your dog, or your cat, or whoever you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis might try to throw something at you that you perhaps can't handle or weren't ready, weren't prepared for. But if you have woken up and showed up for you first, in your morning routine, you are then prepared to show up for them and whatever they might try to throw at you. So one of his top tips that he has in his morning routine that he recommends everybody having in some sort of routine is thankfulness, aka gratitude. And of course, what better time to talk about gratitude than Thanksgiving week? So my challenge to you, the remainder of this week, is gratitude and thankfulness. And I actually had some fun on social media today. I posted a couple of things about the topic because I wanted to see what folks were thinking and what kind of morning routines they have, what kind of gratitude, and what that practice looks like. Because when you think about a gratitude practice, it could look like something very different to every single one of you. And I know I'm tying it to a morning routine, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen in the morning. But really, what we're getting at here is, how am I making the time to give gratitude and to seek the good in everything that's going on in the world? So I got a couple of great folks talking about their morning routine. We've got When I walk my dog, that's my time to think about for 30 minutes all of the things that I'm grateful for. And after that 30 minutes, my attitude is fire emoji, 100%. And that was from Coach Jackson, actually. And we had Allie chime in and say she does prayer and journaling sometimes. That's awesome. So we have so many different ways that we can express gratitude, and it takes the time, it takes the intention behind it is what it comes down to. So I'm going to name drop one more of my favorite influencers before we kind of dive into some of the takeaways for today. So Ed Milet, the Ed Milet Show is another fantastic podcast that I really hope that you're listening to. If you're not listening to that podcast yet, you're making a huge mistake. Get it on your roster there. So have you ever really thought about the power of negative thinking? So there's a podcast, which I'll add in the notes in this episode, that Ed Milet has a guest named Stephen Coulter, author, researcher, awesome human being that has written some really great books. And he talks about in his research and in his studies and findings that the brain takes in 11 million bits of information a second. Most of what's going on is processed subconsciously. 11 million bits. That's too much stuff. That's a lot going on in our brains. So what our brains do, and we've talked about this in previous episodes too, is our brain, it sifts, it sorts, it really subconsciously goes to threats, dangers, opportunities. That's what the amygdala is doing. So cognitive psychologists talk a lot about negativity bias. So when we think about all that our brain is processing on a day-to-day basis, your brain will take in 6 to 9 bits of negative information for every positive bit of information that gets through. So think of those odds there, 6 to 9 negative information for every one positive thought that gets through. So if you don't take time for gratitude, you are programmed to take on too much negative information. So I'm not talking about this episode in a frou-frou, mindful, we all got to sit in Indian style and meditate. But if you don't take time, again, I'll repeat that for gratitude, if you do not take the time, you're taking in too much negative information. In a year like this, we can't afford that. So if we are thinking of being mindful of the things that we have, our brain is able to process and able to better overcome or be prepared when we have that armor. Kind of back to Shetty's comment, we have that armor in the morning where we've already thought on all the great things that we have. And then we're able to take on any of that negative information that might come to our brain throughout the day. So with that said, there are tons and tons of great articles, podcasts, and research on some practices and some ways in which you can focus on having more gratitude and giving more thanks. So I narrowed it down to just 3 of my favorite ones right now, but honestly, there's a ton, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. How to incorporate more of an attitude of gratitude. So some of you may not be journalers, and that's okay, but it's also going to be my first tip. And why do you think that is? So imagine this. Every morning I wake up, and before I'm able to have my coffee, I must write down 5 things that I am grateful for. Whew, and sometimes it is a stretch. But you better believe I want that fresh roasted coffee. I can smell it in the kitchen. So before I reach for that cup, I must muster up 5 things. Now, what I've noticed since incorporating this practice is that I seek the good in the day. So I have something to write about in the morning, so I can have my coffee. And if you refer to episode 4 of this podcast, You Are Who You Are Waiting For, I talk all about habits. And that was a way that I previously was not a journaler, and I wasn't starting my mornings in a positive way. I was grabbing my phone. I was looking at negative content on social media. I was checking my email and getting stressed out right off the bat. And it wasn't serving me well. So that was a way that I incorporated the habit of, okay, you can't have your coffee until you write these 5 things down. And it felt like a chore at homework first. But then I realized, oh my goodness, I am starting my day in a way that is going to give me that armor to overcome anything ahead of me. And again, think back to the science. think it was 6 to 9 bits of negative information for every bit of one that we received throughout the day. But I can reference back to those things I wrote in the morning and be like, okay, it's not that bad. Or, oh man, you went on a run this morning. Like, you're able to go on a run, right? You have, and sometimes, again, like I said, it's going to be something so small that feels silly, but I'm thankful for that stranger this morning at the coffee shop that held the door open for me, right? And it's seeking that good that is going to allow for those negative thoughts to kick them to the curb, right? Don't give them too much time to fester or think on, and then we're on this downward spiral that, the world is an ugly place, and it's not, right? Sometimes it feels that way, yes. I'm not naive. Sometimes it definitely feels that way, but what's the harm in having a list of things that you're grateful for that have happened to you over the course of the day, the week, the month? So think about that. Seriously, think about this. What bad can come from seeking the good in a day? I can't think of a single bad thing that can come from that. Not only do I just get my coffee, but I get to start my day off thinking about all of the good that is surrounding me. So, with my first tip and my first challenge, can you, for this next week, whenever you're listening to this podcast, look at the next 7 days out. Can you keep a gratitude journal? Doesn't have to be fancy. It can be on some sticky note paper. Can you keep a gratitude journal and write 5 things every single day that you're grateful for? And maybe you're not sure where to start. So I would recommend asking yourself questions like this. What was your favorite moment yesterday? What was your favorite thing that happened yesterday? What did someone do yesterday that made you happy? What made you smile? What is something that you accomplished yesterday? And lastly, what always cheers you up when you're down? If you can start your day asking yourself these questions, you will have that armor. You will be equipped to take on the day that's ahead. All right, so that's your first tip, your first challenge. So here's another one. And I'll be honest, this one's going to be a little bit tougher, but I'm going to do it with you. This is something that I'm going to challenge myself to incorporate. Can you commit to one day this week when you will be intentional about not complaining about anything? Ugh, that even rolling off my tongue sounded wrong. That's a tough one. So can you pick one day in the next coming 7 days that you will not complain about anything? Does even just saying that and hearing that make you feel some type of way? Like, I don't think I could do it, Audrey. I don't know. This one might not be for me. Maybe that day can be Thanksgiving. I'm going to level up that challenge too. Maybe that day for you can be Thanksgiving Day. And maybe you're sitting there imagining the in-laws at the Thanksgiving table, judging your turkey preparation, or your aunt that you just know is bound to ask you why you haven't settled down yet. I get it. But I also know that we can find a better way to process. And not letting these things fester when we hear them, and not utilizing this time to complain with our significant other on the sidebar, right? So when you think a negative thought, try to see a positive in a situation is my goal for you and is my challenge for you and myself. As I said, that's going to be a challenge for me as well. So I wanted to start this off by saying a whole week where you don't complain. And I think that is very aggressive. That's tough right now, especially. I think the holidays can be a very stressful time, and now throw in the time that we're in right now. And also, I know some folks had to change their travel plans and aren't able to be with family like they'd like to. So we're going to start with one day at a time. Pick that day. Mine's going to be Thanksgiving. What will yours be? And maybe one day this week becomes 2 next week. And maybe next month, next thing we know, we've spent 3 days. We're like, holy crap, I haven't complained about anything. And next thing we know, we're rolling around in a pile of gratitude, seeing all the good things that surround us, all the purposes, all the lessons. Just imagine. So, again, my second tip for you is, can you be mindful to not complain for a day this week? Can that day be Thanksgiving? To see the good, to find the light. And trust, we are all likely walking into some drama, some emotions, and some adversity, or we're already experiencing it. We all can relate there. But nonetheless, I challenge me and I challenge you. Okay, now here's tip number 3. Now, I've said this one before in a different context, and it rings so true with this topic of gratitude. Get honest with yourself. You are who you surround yourself with. If you're having trouble finding the light, ask yourself that very question. Who am I surrounding myself with? Who's in my circle? Do we need to reassess that? Are they helping me yield the results I want out of this life? And when you think about that, it's not just the people around you and your tribe or your hub that you need to audit, but also I think this is a great time to audit and consider that what's on your newsfeed feeds your mind. You need to be selective about what you're exposed to and set boundaries accordingly. Clean up the platforms. And I even encourage, if you're having a rough day, searching some categories or having some hashtags that you follow that you know are going to add some surges of positivity and really redirect you towards the way that you'd like to feel. Instead of sitting there and doing the death scroll and seeing how good Susan looks and seeing how Matt is on a yacht. Why am I not on a yacht right now? And getting that downward spiral of negativity. So really think about the folks that are in your circle, the accounts that you're allowing on your newsfeed, and surround yourself with the people that you want to be like. Surround yourself with the folks that are going to lift you up, that are going to bring you higher. So these were 3 very simple tips that I wanted to encourage everybody to take a look at over the next week. See if we can form some habits around them. So the first one I said is start your morning with a gratitude journaling. 5 things that I'm grateful for. Think about the last day. Think about the last week. What made me smile? What made me happy? What picked me up when I was down? 5 things. Add to that list every single day. I challenge you to pick one day this week, I reckon it should be Thanksgiving, to not complain, not gossip, be present in the moment, and experience all the good that's around you. And lastly, do a little auditing of what accounts you're following, what folks are in your circle, and see if those are the people that are going to help sustain this new practice, right? Going to help sustain this attitude of gratitude and seeking all the good that is around you. And the reason I say this is, I know we hear this quote all the time, be the change that you want to see in the world. We can get closer and closer to that by making gratitude part of each and every day. If we all practice gratitude more regularly, the world will become a better place. If you're going through some major stuff this year, this is not to make light of a situation, but instead to look for light in any situation. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the series and today's episode specifically. I really hope that you spring out of your chair and seek those opportunities to see all of the good that surrounds you as you navigate through this year and well beyond this year. So I really do hope that you can accept the challenge. Like I said, Thanksgiving Day, no complaining for me, no gossiping for me. Who else can put your hand in the pile on that one? I think that will really help us all navigate through some of these tricky times. So that's what I will leave you with. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. There's some other great speakers and great content lined up for the remainder of the year in this series. And also planning at the very end of the series, we'll have a little recap with sound bites from all of the speakers that we had throughout the course of the last 15 weeks of the year. So perhaps if you missed an episode or you didn't get to catch them all and you kind of want to get a little Spark Notes version, we'll have that available for you along with a little workbook to go along with it. So excited to share that with you over the course of the next few weeks. Again, let's make it a great end of the year. We're not waiting. We are not waiting for 2021 to turn things around to make it a great year. Because what's going to change in 2021? We're probably still going to be wearing masks. We're probably still going to be distancing. A lot of the restrictions we might feel on ourselves are still going to be present. But right here, our mindset, they can be ready to go and not be phased in 2021. When some of those nuances are still here, our mindset is going to be clear and we're going to be able to freaking bust out there and make some magic happen. I really hope that you're with me. Let's freaking do it.